Hi there, my name's Vince from mymatevince.com, and in this video today I'm going to attempt to repair an Xbox One X which is not displaying to the TV. It's just got a black screen even though the Xbox itself is on. So this was sent in by a viewer called Myron, and he attempted to do some work on the HDMI retimer chip. Unfortunately, a few components blew off the board, and that's when he contacted me asking me would I be interested in it for a video. So he sold it to me, and here it is now, all nicely packed. So I need to strip down the Xbox, I need to get to the board, I need to swap out the little HDMI retimer chip, and I need to find the missing components as well. And hopefully then we might have a working Xbox One X. So to strip it down, you need to use a T10 and a T9 security bit. Now watch this bit, this is my biggest mistake. You ready? Watch. There. As simple as that. You can see I didn't take much force at all, but somehow I managed to completely rip the connector off the actual motherboard. So that's like a Lego connector, and you should just pull it up. But in this instance, when I pulled it up, I think I used too much sideways pressure, and the connector came straight off along with the top bit instead of remaining on the board. So that has caused me a huge headache. Luckily, it's only for the front USB port and the sync button. So I should still be able to get the Xbox working without that, and just use a USB cable to sync up the controller. But anyway, let's not worry about this yet. Let's try to get it displaying, which is the main fault with this Xbox One X. So you can see now, the final parts of stripping it down, just undo the X clamp, and then we can remove the heatsink, and now we have the board. So this is the HDMI retimer chip that we need to change over. So you can see it looks a bit burnt. So I'm just checking out the actual HDMI port. You can see the pins at the back look perfect, and also if you have a look at the pins inside, they also look absolutely fine, top and bottom. So I'm confident there's nothing wrong with the actual HDMI port. So hopefully it will just be a case of doing the retimer chip. So here we have the connector that got ripped off, the little Lego connector, and it isn't quite as bad as I thought it was gonna be. So if I can repair this, I will give it a go. I've got to run some new pads just from the wires and also the ground there, just using some enameled wire. But I'm going to worry about this later on after I've got the actual display working. So now I've covered the HDMI retimer chip in flux, and I'm just going to remove it. My temperature at 480 degrees Celsius, and the airflow is 7 out of 8. And I thought this would come off easy enough, but it took absolutely ages. The amount of heat that this board drained away was unbelievable. I thought this chip was never going to come off. It really surprised me. So obviously I'm not an expert at these things, but I've removed quite a few chips now, and I've never seen one like this before. So I'm adding more flux to it in the hope that the heat will concentrate around the pins and lift it off. The problem is, in the middle of this chip is a huge ground pad, and it's just draining all the heat away. But eventually, after what felt like 10 minutes, it eventually slides off. So now what I have to do is give it all a clean and see what we're left with. Initially, it looks pretty good, but let's get some isopropyl alcohol on it and see what the finished result is. Looks pretty clean. So these are going to be the ones going off to the actual HDMI chip itself. Can you see they then go down to these little filters here and then straight into the chip. So I'm just going to do a quick continuity test just between the pads and this side here, just to make sure that those little chips are okay, those little filters. Going all the way over to here, which it is. It shouldn't be shorting with there, which is not. Okay, so that's that one, that's good. That's just going to be a ground. I just want to double check that is a ground. Yeah, okay, that's a ground in the middle there. That one there is going to be going to this one. And not shorting with this one, nope, that's fine. And now I just need to do the same on all the other ones as well. So checking for continuity and make sure that they're not shorting with each other. Because then if the port's okay and these filters are okay, the chances are then it must be the HDMI retimer chip. Now what you see here is actually my Xbox One X that I've stripped down to find out what the missing components are. This little resistor here, which I think is R386, so that could be doing something because it's going from that via and that via to this pin here. And we're also missing R71, which is this one here, and we're also missing this one here, C43, this capacitor. Resistors I can measure in circuit, that's no problem. Unfortunately with the capacitor I do have to take it out, so I'm using my tweezers to take that out, my soldering tweezers, and now I've put it in some blue tack because it's so tiny, and I'm measuring it and it's coming up as 112 nanofarad. So I'm going to replace that with a 100 nanofarad capacitor, and the two resistors are 9.5 kiloohms and 1.25 ohms. So I'm going to replace them with a 10 kiloohm and a 1 ohm resistor. And hopefully then when I replace those three along with the retimer chip, it should be good to work again. So I've replaced them now with spares that I had already, and you can see C43, R71, and just at the bottom there R386 are now replaced. So the only thing we have to do now is take off the retimer chip from my good board and then put it into Myron's faulty board. Now you might think that's madness doing that, but there's no point in me buying a HDMI chip if it turns out that it's not that. So what I'll do is I'll use this one here because I know it's working, and then I can buy one to put in my one in a week or two when it arrives. So that came off nice and easy. I used plenty of flux, and now I just need to put it onto the board here, and I'm going to put a load of flux on it, and hopefully now it will go on nicely. I've also put leaded solder on all those pads as well, so that should bring down the melting temperature just a little bit. So you can see it dancing around there, and if you just watch at the very end, you will see it will just pull itself into place. There we go. So now that looks like it's nice and central, so I'm going to clean it with some isopropyl alcohol, and then we'll have a good look at it, make sure there's no bridges or anything like that, and make sure that everything looks okay. Right, so there you have it. As you can see, that's gone on nicely. You can see it's in the middle there, and there's no pins that are bridged anywhere. And yeah, well happy with how that went on. And you can now see, now that it's cleaned up, that this is the replacement capacitor here, resistor and resistor. So I don't think the capacitor would have made any difference, but this resistor might have done, because look, whatever is feeding this pin is not feeding this pin if this resistor is not in place, or this one here, yeah, because it goes from there and these two wires into this pin. So yeah, I've got a feeling they might well be very important. So now I need to put it back together enough to test it. Here you see me attempting to start it in safe mode. So I've got my thumb on the power button and my other thumb on the eject, and you need to hold them down for roughly around 10 seconds until you hear the initial beep and then a beep again after 10 seconds, and it will start the Xbox in the lowest possible resolution. Now on this one here I wasn't sure whether it was actually going to work or not because it was taking ages, but then the TV suddenly recognised it as 480p, but even then nothing happened for a long time. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting, thinking, where is the Xbox green screen? But nothing was happening, and then I thought, oh, maybe there's something else that's wrong other than the retimer chip. But then, just when I was about to give up, you can see it starting there in 480p. And then all I do is change the resolution to 720p, that works, and then I up it again to 1080p, and that also works as well. So then I think, okay, well, let's bring it downstairs and we'll try it on the 4K TV and see if that works. Now on the 4K TV you can see all the green ticks there apart from the Dolby one, so that's all fine. And also I've popped a disc in as well just to make sure that that's installing, which it is, and I've connected to the internet, and then it wants to update itself. So it looks like this Xbox is all working fine. So now we have this horrible job to do, which is trying to get this connector back on. Now look, you can see it in relation to my finger. The thing's tiny and there's 10 pins on each side, so I know this isn't going to be easy, but I want to give it a go. So I'm scraping back to copper so I can get some solder on it, and then once I get the solder on it I can then run some enamelled wire. Now this enamelled wire is 0.1 millimeters. That's absolutely tiny, so you can get 100 of them in 1 centimeter. That's how small it is, But still, at this moment in time, I'm quite happy with how it's going. You can see I've just done that pad there, and now I need to do the other pads. You can see I've put the solder on the wires there, and the next one along. So then to give it strength, I think, well, let's put some solder mask on the middle there, and that will keep it all in place. So I'll put the UV light on it, that all goes hard, but this is where it becomes a nightmare. Basically, even though it's only 0.1 millimeters, it's too high for the connector to go on. So I try and I try and I try, but I just cannot get anything to stick because the solder pads are not high enough. So it's just a complete nightmare, and all that's happening is I just keep burning and burning the connector. So I almost give up on it, and then I think to myself, okay, let's apply heat from the top. I can't apply heat from the bottom because I know full well the board's going to drain all the heat away. So then I get the hot air out, knowing that it's going to melt it, but I think I haven't really got much choice. I don't want to risk burning the connector at the bottom there because then it won't be able to be turned on, and I'd rather have the USB port not working in the sink than not being able to turn the thing on. Unfortunately though, it doesn't go well at all. So then I come up with the idea of, well, hold on a minute, let's see how many wires we need for the sync button, because a USB port, I don't care, there's already 2 USB ports out the back. I can always use a USB hub if I wanted to. And luckily, we've got ground on the middle pin there, so that's short in between there and there, which is great. And we've got 2 contacts there either side, and they just go onto the one track. So whenever you press the button at the front, we have continuity between the middle one and the pin on the left, and the middle one and the pin on the right. So I only have to actually run one wire from the little component, the resistor, whatever it is, just before that switch, to the corresponding pin on the board there. And it is the pin on the top left. So if I was to do that, which is this basically track on the other side, it goes through a wire, then it travels down there. So if I was just to run a wire from there to the switch, in theory, the sync should work. So that's exactly what I did, and then I covered it in glue gun just to make it all nice and secure, because I realised that that's going to be very, very fragile. So I'm actually happy with how that's gone, but I don't know whether it is going to work or not down the one wire. So now what I have to do is put it all back together and put thermal paste on and just give everything a nice good clean. So the thermal paste I'm using is non-conductive, so it doesn't matter if too much goes on. All that's happening is you're wasting your money. So that's the heatsink in place. Now I need to put the X clamp back on. And put everything back together. Right, that's it, back together. Let's now connect up to the TV and see if the sync button works. Right, so turn this one on. And now hold this down. Come on, sync up, sync up, sync up. Yes! Oh, I'm so happy. I'm more happy with that than I am with the actual retimer chip. Oh, thank God for that. It hasn't been an ideal fix because I haven't fixed everything. But the bottom line is, before it wasn't displaying, and now it is displaying, and the only thing that's not working is the USB port. So I think most people would sacrifice a USB port in order to be able to use the Xbox One X itself. So massive thumbs up to Myron for sending it over to me. I really do appreciate that. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope everybody else enjoyed the video too. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe for more Trying to Fix videos. Take care. Bye now.